everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael, and Molly is away this week, but with us to help recap both the past episode of Survivor 49 as well as a mid season check in of Dancing with the Stars, we have with us back on the pod our good friend Jenna Quirk. Jenna, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's finally starting to feel like spooky season, a little bit cooler here in Austin, so cannot complain about that.
Yes, I love fall. It's my favorite time of year and
The
very
best.
excited for the weather to finally come down a little bit. Here in Texas, it is pretty extreme over the summer. So excited for that, change wardrobe. And yeah, I love this time of year. So very excited, looking forward to that. But thank you so much for joining us this week, Jenna. We have an exciting episode. So we have episode 5 of Survivor 49 and Dancing with the Stars, we if you're watching the video, you might see that we are Wicked themed because this past week was Wicked Night on Dancing with the Stars. So we are excited to talk about all that. But let's get started first with Survivor. So, Jenna, this is our first time having you on since season 49 has started. What are your thoughts as we are 5 weeks into the season?
I am liking this season. I think I'll like any season of Survivor, but a season of Survivor in front of me and I'll eat it up. I really like the cast though. They're really providing me a lot of like good energy, and even it's 10 days in, Sophie hasn't eaten since before stepping on the beach. Even she's providing a lot of entertainment, and I've also gotten the chance to meet some cousins of some of the players. So I just really love this cast, and they're just doing really well. Seeing some strategic chops kind of coming into play, and I think this episode was a really good kind of turning point. A little bit, we the pre-merge has kind of been a little bit of a, I don't want to say drag, but the same tribe had been losing every single time. So I was excited to see the tribe swap and the new change of pace and things like that. So definitely looking forward to the rest of the season. But I do really like everyone that's still in the season.
Yeah, I will say I love this cast. I think that I'm really, really hopeful for the merge this
Mhm.
season. To me, I feel like this season is almost maybe a reverse of 48, where the pre merge was so bonkers. And then once we got to the merge, it was just, this strong five, strong six that just kind of ran the game. And it was a little bit boring. And so I think this season, pre merge, been a little bit slow, but I do feel like there's so many characters that we have yet to really tap into. And there's seemingly a lot of good gamers, a lot of big fans on the season. And I feel very hopeful that once we get to the merge, once we don't have to worry about just the same tribe losing over and over again, and we have, bigger numbers for to do, different moves, and I just hope that it's not going to be just a pagonging, but I don't think so, from what at least from what Jeff said, that this season's unpredictable once we get to the merge. Like, I have a lot of hope.
I don't think so either. And also the way that both Sophie and Alex have been able to integrate themselves into the dynamics of their separate tribes that they got swapped into. I have high hopes for both of them to make it deep.
I do too. But let's get into last week's episode then. So let's start with the new Kelly tribe. So in the middle of the night, Shannon tells Steven about this plan she concocted. She wants to bring together two members of each OG tribe to work together once they get to the merge. What are your thoughts before we kind of go into their tribe's reaction to this plan and her game in general? What were your thoughts of this idea once she announced it?
I mean, I understand where she's coming from. She feels like she's in a disadvantageous situation coming into the tribe swap, which she is. Her and Sage are the only two former Uli that got swapped onto the new Kelly tribe, and she's trying to. She, like she says herself, she's in self preservation mode and really kind of wanting to formulate any sort of plan, kind of pitching it to a few different people, and like obviously it's just an hour and a half edit, but she seems to kind of hit the ground running and start pitching it to people who she trusts from each of the other two tribes and things like that. So I understand where the plan is coming from. They're also pretty fresh after watching 46. So maybe she might have taken a little bit of inspiration from one Cube Burdette, but I'm not really sure where her thought process was if she was trying to emulate that, because that didn't really work out that well for Q and for the members of 46. But I understand where she's coming from. I think she might have just kind of approached it kind of in a way that made the other tribe mates kind of begin to lose trust in her because of how hard she was pushing it.
Yeah, I think the problem wasn't the message, it was both the messaging and the messenger. Like, it was just the fact that she did this in the middle of the night as everyone's trying to sleep. Like, on Survivor, I feel like interrupting somebody's sleep is maybe not the best thing. Like, it's one thing on Big Brother where, you can sleep all day if you want to. But on Survivor, you really can't do that. And once you're like actually, have as uncomfortable as they are, like, I just feel like it's just not the right move to try to do that in the middle of the night. I mean, I remember, was it Baby Andy on 47 in the middle of the night went and tried to talk to somebody? I can't even remember who it was anymore. But it was like, they weren't super happy about the fact that he interrupted their sleep. And I feel like that's a mistake that maybe some people make where it's like, oh, I don't have a lot of time where I can just maybe like sneak, just like whisper to somebody without, anyone else noticing. And they think, well, if everyone else is asleep, it's a good time to do that. But I don't know that it always goes over so well.
Yeah, and I think Steven had a similar reaction. He did not really enjoy being woken up super early, and I wouldn't have either if I was enjoying a peaceful night's rest on the beaches of Fiji and I got woken up to Shannon kind of pitching a plan. I need at least a few minutes for my brain to wake up.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with it coming from Shannon, and we'll get into this now, but she's already somebody who people are very sketched out by, think that she's playing too hard. And this is just kind of another example of that. And so, she even tells them that she is fine with voting out Sage if they need to. Like, she's willing to throw Sage right under that bus in order to work with them. And Steven seems really sketched out by how hard she's playing. MC seems a little sketched out by it. And then, they go to talk to Sage, and Sage is thrilled to know that everybody else is feeling the way that she has. And it's like, oh my God, I can actually be honest about my feelings and not have to kind of keep that in, thinking that everybody has been hypnotized by her.
I've been in the same situation as Sage where I might have had maybe an unpleasant experience with someone, or like maybe something didn't really go how I anticipated, but kind of based on my general reaction, it seems to have that seems like everyone else is kind of having a different experience or like picking up on different vibes. So I really related to Sage's elation in the moment when she found out that Steven and Alex kind of felt the same way. And I kind of want to give a lot of props to Steven for the way that like he's built up these relationships with MC and Christina and Alex, because especially Christina and Alex had been seemingly vibing with Shannon very well, but because their relationships with Steven were a lot stronger, and he was able the way he was able to pitch it to them that she might have been playing too hard, like and they immediately kind of jump on board with that and start realizing, oh yeah, I think she is playing a little bit too hard. I give props to Steven for that. I think he kind of presented his messaging very well, and kind of the flip side of Shannon, he was the right messenger for that message.
Exactly. Steven has, I think, really been playing one of the strongest games of the season so far. I feel like a little bit
Agreed, yeah.
underrated. I think that he seems to have the trust of everyone on his tribe. And it's like, okay, if Steven thinks this way, like, I trust that he's going to be able to get the rest of the tribe to go along with him. And I think that's the type of person who you really, is dangerous in this game, but I feel like is somebody who I'm really watching out for as a potential winner here.
Absolutely, and he's not doing it in kind of like in any sort of like dictatorship
Right.
fashion. He's doing it very kind of calmly, gently, kind of easygoingly, if that's even a verb, but or adverb. It's not, but you get what I mean. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's built up these strong relationships, and those are obviously paying off in moments like this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Sage tries to earn the trust of the OG Hinas on their tribe by telling them about Rizzo's Beware advantage. So this was, she did this in an effort to kind of prove, hey, Shannon didn't tell you about this, and I am. So maybe you can't trust Shannon as much as you might think you can, and it seems to work. It seems to, I don't know if it was this that necessarily did it, but it was this where we kind of saw the reaction of everyone else being like, yeah, I trust Sage a lot more than I trust Shannon. So it feels like it's really headed in that direction where if they, well, I mean, we're going to get a tribe swap here coming up, so we might not ever see quite the result of this, but if this tribe was to go to tribal, I feel like as of right this moment, it feels like Shannon would have gotten the boot over Sage.
Yeah, I agree. And we also haven't really been able to see a lot of Sage's interactions with the other people on the new Calais tribe. We've gotten to see a lot of Shannon's interactions, but not so much Sage's. Um, but I think after hearing the information from Alex and Steven, I think she made a right move at a right time to share this information with the old Hina members and Alex, um, and in an attempt to gain their trust. And I think what was going through Sage's head is there must have been someone else who received the beware advantage on the other tribe. So if I tell this true information, because I've seen the parchment or I know exactly what this advantage does, it was a public idol over there. It I bet that Sage is thinking someone else will be able to corroborate this information,
Right.
and I'll be able to gain their trust that way.
Yeah, and MC was like, "Yeah, this was very similar to the note that I got, so I know that she's telling the truth because nobody else could possibly know that unless they had already seen it as well." So that was a really really smart move, I think, for Sage to do that, and it seemed to really work in exactly the way that she
Hmm.
was hoping it would. So I'm
And I
interested to
think
see. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and another thing, it's I think that Sage was assuming that the information would eventually be revealed because it was such a public idol
Yeah.
on the old Uli tribe. I think that in Sage's minds, eventually the idol would be public knowledge to everyone, not just the old Uli tribe. So she
Mhm.
wanted to get ahead of that narrative and be the one that shared that information. And I agree with you. I think it was successful on Sage's part.
Yeah, very, very smart. Well, let's go over to the new Hina tribe. So, Jason is the last OG Hina left on this tribe, putting him at the bottom of the totem pole since Sophie had, we saw last week, been able to really work her way in extremely well onto this tribe. But Savannah also has a bit of a grudge against Jawan. So he continues to, he took her bag back at the OG Yuli tribe, took her water bottle now. He's been listening in on conversations that she's been having. So, what do you think about this? Because, like, to me, this really feels like a personal vendetta more so than like a strategic move for Savannah. And what do you think about her seemingly like being this annoyed by Jawan that she had to get him out over making the easy move here that potentially, would have been Jason?
I grew up with an older brother and little cousins, and anytime that you have siblings or family members that kind of get together to plot against you or just do something you think is annoying, then I think Savannah's reaction is totally valid because I feel like at this point she views Joanne as the annoying little brother who is kind of driving her crazy, and she might be a little bit too emotional about the situation as it's kind of occurring, but it seems like she's done more than enough in other areas to make up for the fact that she's reacting so emotionally.
Mhm.
But I totally understand where Savannah's coming from as someone who's kind of been on the receiving end of those annoying little jives that people are throwing at you. So I kind of understand where she's coming from. I agree with you that it's a little bit more personal than it is strategic, but I think she has proven this episode that she is able to think more strategically, even when something is annoying her so much. If she's so stressed out about Jawan and the situation with him, but she's still able to redirect and make kind of more sound strategic moves.
Yeah, I think a lot of this was really just her venting rather than anything she was necessarily going to actually play out. Like, I think it's one of those things where, like, if and when Jawan makes the most sense to get out, she is more than happy to get on board with that. But I think that, as time passes, she's able to kind of calm down a little bit, sleep on it. I never really thought like, oh, this is weak. She's going to go after Jawan when there is somebody else there who just makes so much more sense to do.
So
Like
much more sense.
there was to me, I could never find a real valid reason in my mind for them to get rid of Jawan. So I was like, I just don't think as much as we're seeing her talk about it and is so annoyed by him, I just don't see it happening quite yet. But it really does feel like she does not want to work with him moving forward. She does not, any more than she has to in terms of getting him as a vote when they need it, does not want really anything to do with him.
No, I think she is going to be absolutely thrilled to vote him out, write his name down when the time comes. But agree that right now he obviously trusts the team. Unbeknownst to them, he rigged the rock draw to have someone from their side go on the journey instead of Jason. Like he's really like putting in the work to make sure he's proving that he's a loyal member of the new Hina tribe, Old Uli tribe, whatever you want to call it. It's all kind of confusing because it's
Yeah,
like
I know. And
switching
it's going to
names
get more
basically
confusing next week.
gonna get way more confusing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this rock drop because so we go on a journey, and MC and Nate end up as the ones to go. But on Hina, we had an interesting moment here that you mentioned where they decide to pick who's going to go by picking rocks. And Jawan rigs this rock draw a little bit to make sure that Jason doesn't get to go and then potentially have an idol by putting the rocks in order of. So I think there were like two black rocks and one white rock, and then he put the white rock right on top so that it would be the first one picked, and then made sure to give Nate the first pick. So he knew that it was more than likely Nate was going to pick that first rock that was there. I thought very smart and not something that I necessarily would have ever. Maybe I would have thought about it, but been like, oh, I'm going to get caught trying to do this. But he seemed to get away with it very successfully.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Big Brother 25 when Jag and Bowie Jane hatched a plan to pick a number closer so that Jag would win over Matt.
Oh
It
my god, I
kind
don't
of
even remember that. Wow.
you don't have to. It's really not
Look at
relevant, but
FBJ coming up with a plan.
yeah, I think it was more a Jag move, but Bowie
Mm,
Jane was
that,
able
that
to
tracks.
execute it well, similar to Jawan here. But I agree. I thought it was really smart. And he was put in the position of delegating the rock draw, being kind of the person in charge of it, and he saw that and took advantage of it. And I think he's very smart to do that. He might not be able to speak at tribal council, but he's able to execute in moments like these when he has to kind of use some strategic chops.
Well, and this, like, I wonder if he told anyone about it. Like, this to me feels like proof, like, oh, wow, he is on our side. Like, this is something that I
Yeah,
feel like he should be shouting from the rooftops to the rest of
I
his tribe, being
agree,
like,
and
look what I did.
I think it's that's kind of a miss on his part to not be sharing that. And also, we don't know if he had we could get a
True.
flashback to him telling the others that he did that, but As of now, based on the information that we've been given, like he hasn't told anyone else about it. So I really hope that that doesn't come back to bite him, but it certainly might, based on how Savannah is feeling about him and kind of turning the other people in the tribe against him. But that's also unbeknownst to Jawan. So hopefully he's able to figure it out and get himself out of the situation he's unknowingly in.
I know, yeah. Well, for this journey, the two of them, MC and Nate, have to work together to move sandbags from one side of the beach to the other before time runs out. If they succeed, they both get to keep their votes. If not, they both lose their votes. What did you think of this form version of a journey?
I do kind of like these kind of work together type of journeys better than separate. I still am not totally on board with the losing your vote situation, kind of based on how it's screwed over some of my favorites in the past. But I like how it's kind of you work together so that you both get to keep it, and it forces them to yes work together and also like use that time to build a bond. And luckily it worked out that it was a cross tribal bond that hadn't existed before, and that they were able to seemingly kind of get to know each other, get to like each other a lot more. But yeah, I liked this journey. I thought it looked super brutal. I could never have done that in a million years. So I'm props to MC and Nate. They were both exhausted when they had returned. But yeah, I liked the journey, and I hope that we see more kind of working together than going separate ways. But I do like the fact that this season has featured a lot of different types of journeys, but all a bit more fair than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think the best thing about season 49 so far has been the journeys. I think they figured out the journeys from what, at least what we've seen so far, and I figure we're getting towards the end of them given that the merge is coming up. But I think that both journeys that we've seen, because it's just been the two, right, that we've seen so far, and I
Hmm.
think both of them have been great. What I like about both of them is that nobody is forced to lose their vote on either journey that we've seen. It's not like I think last season was probably the worst journeys we've ever seen, where it was just random, and if someone was forced to lose their vote, they didn't even have the chance to decide whether they wanted to go for it or not. And this year, they actually, if they are able to accomplish their goal, neither of them have to lose their vote. And I think, okay, I still don't even love that it's an option necessarily to lose the vote, but if we have to do it, I am thrilled that at the very least nobody has to, and nobody has so far. So I think that that has been a very, very good part of Survivor 49 that I hope sticks in the future.
Agreed.
Well, in the middle of this journey, they find a note saying that there is an advantage hidden nearby, and whoever finds it gets to not only keep their vote, but they also get this advantage, and the other has to finish the challenge alone. So, what did you think of this little twist that they had in the game, and what would you have gone for?
I liked the twist a lot. I thought it was a kind of a fun way to kind of show the true colors of true intentions of the castaways who were on the journey. And I really respect Nate for gaming it in the way that he did, and kind of making it let's have no one lose their vote. Let's finish these together, and then go find it, because I think both of them were in the situation that they didn't want to do it by themselves. I think they were both kind of pretty spent at that point. And they had also built that bond over doing the first half of them, and they didn't really want to betray their new friend that they had just made. So I think Nate gaming it in the way that he did, I was really impressed by that. I do think that MC should have looked for the advantage a little bit longer, after she saw that there was still plenty of time left on the
Yeah.
hourglass. I know that Nate said that he didn't want to look for the advantage. He didn't need that. I think he should have been looking for it a little bit harder too. He has said, "Oh, like I would never find it. MC is so much fitter than I am." But it's all about like where you look and like getting to there first and spotting it first. So I think they both should have like looked for it a little bit longer, especially considering how much time was left. It seemed like less than half the time had passed based on the view of the hourglass that at least we saw. It might have been a lot less, but based on what we had seen, they had significantly more time. So I wish they had taken advantage of it. But I did like what Nate was doing and kind of the overall twist.
Yeah, I that was so interesting to me too that Nate was that concerned about the time when from what we could see it seemed like there was so much time left and I was like, gosh, I feel like you could easily find it in that amount of time if you know it's like not that far away. Like I feel like I don't know, try do it a little bit longer, but cuz they
I
only
think he was.
was
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I think he was less concerned about the time limit for himself and more so about like not wanting him to get the advantage
Mhm.
either. So it was like, and like she said, her brain was kind of mush, so she just decided to like end it when he told her to end it.
Yeah.
But he was less concerned about like the time limit for himself and more so about like not wanting MC to find it.
Yeah, and I wonder if because MC did seem a little bit like sketched out like that. Like, why are you wanting to end this so early? So I do wonder if like it did seem like they built a really close bond, like learning about each other and all that. But I do wonder when and if they get to the merge together, if at all that will stick in MC's mind as like, I think I can trust this guy. Like he did, we did build a bond, but he also did very intentionally not want me to find this idol. It seems like. So I wonder if that will at all stick in her mind as like, I don't know that I can fully 100% trust him.
But she also wanted to keep her vote as she didn't have her vote currently
Yeah.
because of her beware advantage. So I did understand her move then. I just wish she would have advocated for a little bit more time in that situation.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they did at the end of the day, neither of them found the advantage, but they did both keep their votes as that well, MC kept her vote that she doesn't have. Because they did get all the sandbags to the other side and were successful. So that was really cool. I That was a hard journey, like you said, and I was very impressed that they did do it. But when they got back to camp, okay, I felt like, and they were both like, for the most part, like Nate didn't tell them about the advantage part of it, but like they did, they were pretty honest about their journey and what they did. I felt like I would not believe either of them. They both sounded like they were lying to me, even when they were telling the truth. And I don't know if that's just me, but like, especially MC was like, she came back, she was like, oh, it was so hard. I'm so tired. Like, I would have been like, oh, great acting, MC. Like, for a low budget movie. Like, but I don't know. Was that just me?
I didn't really put myself in that situation. If I think I don't know whether or not I would have believed them. I probably would have. I'm a pretty a trusting person, and that's one of the reasons that I could never play reality TV. But I kind of like, I feel like the way that MC and Nate have both built relationships on their respective tribes, and they were in positions where they had the majority on both of their tribes, and it seemingly were well placed within both of those tribes, like because of that and because of the way that they presented it. I think that they were pretty persuasive in that moment. And yeah, we have seen that none of them reacted to it or seemed to not believe them. But like I was also it was also cool to see how both of them told the same story so that like when they
Yeah.
can eventually compare notes, they won't be able to suss them out. It would have been a little bit more interesting if one person had disclosed the advantage and one person hadn't. We've seen that in the past, how people explain their journeys differently and then eventually get called out on it. So it would have been more entertaining, more interesting if one person had bluffed and one person had told the truth. But I mean, I guess that works out well for MC and Nate that they were able to one present the information that as they were wanting to present it, and two that they didn't get sussed out and no one was suspecting anything different, and three that they presented the same information as each other.
Yeah, I think the part that I would have been suspicious of was the fact that there was no upside. Like
Yeah.
the best thing possible is that you get to keep your votes. That I would have, I think, been suspicious about, and then just like the way that, like, especially MC, I think, was describing it, I would have been like, there's something
Mm.
you're not telling me, and I don't know what it is, but there's something you're not telling me. But it didn't seem like necessarily. It actually seemed like Nate's tribe was maybe questioning a little bit more of like, oh, there was no upside. Like, that's a little bit weird. But I don't think at the end of the day it didn't seem like that lasted. Like, they were just like, okay, whatever. We'll see when we watch it.
In the other journey, though, there was no downside. Like they all kept their votes regardless, and only the winner got the advantage that was disadvantaging the other tribe. So there
Hmm.
wasn't any downside to that. So I think that makes it a little bit more believable that there was no upside. There was only a downside or neutral.
That's
And
true.
yeah, so I think presenting that to the tribes, that it might have been a little bit more believable because of the previous journey and kind of how that was presented to the other tribes, and that was the truth. There was no downside of not no one lost their vote or anything. It was purely that Joanne earned an advantage for the Uli tribe that
Mhm.
disadvantaged the Hina tribe. But so I think the fact that they're presenting it as there was no upside, only a downside, like might have made a little bit more sense considering the other journey.
That is very true. Well, then we get to the immunity challenge, and Kelly ends up winning this. Now, the reward that they also got was chickens that we had not seen, I think, since 47. And Alex and Steven end up killing one of the chickens for them to eat. And everyone really has a hard time with this. This is, the entire tribe, it seemed like, kind of almost bonded over how traumatic this was, especially for Alex and Steven. But what would you want to do if you got a reward of chickens on Survivor and you were very hungry? Would you be okay with eating the chickens, or would you? What would your want be here?
I would definitely eat the chickens. I would not kill the chickens. I would maybe help clean up. Like I would grab a stick and sweep feathers off to one side. Like that would be the extent of my involvement in the chicken preparation. Maybe cooking it after it had already been, but I would have to run far away to not
Yeah.
hear those clucks. You would not catch me in a million years killing that chicken, but I would definitely eat the chickens. Especially for me, I'm allergic to nuts, so it's like protein I wouldn't be able to get from any sort of nuts. So I think with protein, it's like it has to really come from meat for me. So I would definitely take advantage of the chicken.
Yeah. No, I think I'm the same way. Like, I feel like the one person that we've seen in the past who is against killing the chickens, it always ends up being an argument. It always ends up being like, okay, let's just vote this person off so that we can kill these chickens. Like, it feels like maybe one of those things that's like, not that important at the end of the day with the game of Survivor, or something that, like, you really, we're going to stand up for what you believe in, which I fully support. But I wouldn't want to be that person. That's the one person. Now, if there's somebody else, or if, one or two other people are also against it, then maybe I would join in and just be like, okay, let's just get the eggs from them and, eat those and be okay with it. But yeah, I would have a really hard time not wanting somebody else to kill a chicken for me.
I mean, we saw that work out in two different ways. We saw Ty and Ko Rong, who adopted the chicken and made it a part of the
Hmm.
family and took it to tribal council. And then we saw Big Wendy and Etch of Extinction, who immediately got booted from her tribe, or by other people. She was an outcast already, but that
Yeah.
did not sit very well with the other members of her tribe that she refused to have the chicken killed. So it could work out one of two ways, like we've seen in the past. But I'm glad that everyone was pretty much on the same page as they needed to kill the chicken to eat because all of them wanted to enjoy the fruits of their labor.
Yeah. Big Wendy having a big podcast mentions week for Survivor. Anytime there's chickens around, I feel like her mentions go way up. So good for her.
If there's someone with blue hair or someone with a chicken, she gets to join the
Yep.
conversation.
Yep. Yeah. Well, then we get to the vote here. So it really comes down to Jason or Jawan. And the easy choice, of course, is Jason, but Savannah really tries to help him and gives him his argument, basically, that he ends up going with, which is the fact that he can be that glue guy, I guess you could say, between OG Yuli and Uji Hina. And he tries to make this argument. What did you think of? First of all, what did you think of Savannah giving this argument to him and really trying to help him here? And then also, what did you think of this argument in general? And is that something that you would at all consider?
I think that Savannah was trying to help. I don't think Savannah could see kind of like any other sort of argument that would get other people to consider keeping him. And for me, unfortunately, I do think it's kind of a weak argument for in the retrospective things because if you're the bridge between old Hina and new Hina, then you have to have that strong relationship with old Hina as you're trying to build with new Hina. If you're like considering yourself to be that bridge, like the relationships have to exist on both sides in order to make something work. And I think that the new Hina tribe kind of just saw right through that he was a very key part of the old Hina tribe. He had pretty good relationships with the people over there. And I also wanted to say that Jason was like really unlucky the past two challenges because what he really excelled at in the challenges were the puzzles and the fact that neither of this immunity challenge or last week's immunity challenge had a puzzle at the end of it that he
Yeah.
was able to excel at and win the tribal for or win the challenge for his tribe. Like I think that really was just really unlucky for him. I don't think he would have been in this situation had there been a puzzle at either of the last two immunity challenges. But because he was such a puzzler, he like was an integral part of his whole tribe. So I think that the other people on the new Hina really saw that and saw that I mean, he had also been open about his relationships over there as well. So I really thought that he was just kind of out of luck in that. But I
Yeah.
do like think Savannah was really trying to help him because she seems to be a really like nice person who did want to help him, want to work with him, like say, oh, there's a chance, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I think to me it feels like Savannah was trying to do anything she could to figure out in her own mind a good reason to keep Jason and get rid of Joanne. And that was kind of just the best she could come up with. And unfortunately, there just wasn't a great reason because everything that she doesn't like Joanne for is just a personal vendetta, really, and not game. It's Joanne hasn't done anything in the game actually to make himself seem disloyal. And I think that maybe his tribe, because it feels like Nate also kind of had questions like, is Jawan going to be loyal to them? But like, what has he done to indicate otherwise? Like, he really hasn't done anything. And so that I think is kind of the problem for them. It's like, we want to get rid of him just because he's annoying us, but there's really no logical reason for it. So any argument that he comes up with or that they come up with for him just isn't really going to stick because at the end of the day, as they talk it over, it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
Jason is voted out here in a 5-1 vote. Now, you get preview for next week, and it looks like we get another swap back to three tribes. So, is this instead of Murgatory? Is this instead of where they get all together in one tribe and then immediately disband back into two tribes? What do you think we're getting here?
I think that we're getting this instead of Mergatory. I think they're trying something different. Because based on kind of numbers, I think that the jury is usually a jury of 8. We have
Hmm.
12 left. So if one person is voted out, this next week, then the merge will be the following week, and then all the merge people will make it to jury, because I think that's been a big complaint from the fans, is like not everyone from that makes the merge is making it to jury. And I think that some fans have had a negative reaction to that. So I think that they're just trying something new. I do think it will be the same jury size of 11. I think that three tries will just last for the one round, and then then they'll make it to merge.
Hmm.
Perhaps we might see something of the two tribes that win get to go merge and get to have a merge feast, and then the tribe that
Mm.
loses, they'll have to vote someone out and they won't get to enjoy the merge feast. That could be something creative that perhaps we see next week. Who
I
knows?
could see that, and that's kind of the earn the merge, if you will.
Hmm.
I could absolutely see that. And look, this is I'm saying this in a positive way, not a negative way, even though it might sound negative, but it's really funny to me if that is what's happening or anything similar to that. How far we've come since Survivor 41 and 42, where we had like all these crazy things that they tried with the merge and slowly but surely every 2 seasons really they've kind of we've erased a lot of those and come back down to basically just a normal merge, and I love it. I'm all for it. I think all of that stuff with changing time, and then the murgatory, and then the changing back to two tribes and then back to one tribe. It's just all so unnecessary. And now it feels like, okay, maybe we've come right back to where we started. And I'm all for it.
I totally agree. Unfortunately, I do think that we see a split tribal at some point down the line. Just for kind of episode purposes, there usually is a split tribal, and those are usually my least favorite things. It ends up taking out players that I like, or players that might be in the middle that like might not have been able to flex their strategic chops yet. So unfortunately, I do see that down the line.
Hmm.
But I think this is like a nice kind of return to form of like a typical merge, or maybe like less people kind of being affected by not getting the merge feast, things like that. And I think for good reason that they're going back to form. I think that there was a big kind of negativity surrounding the hourglass twist and kind of them uh, earning the merge, but then having to face the vote type of situation.
Yeah.
Like, I think I understand why the people who were put in that position kind of reversed it so that they were safe. Obviously, you would make yourself safe in that situation, but it definitely had a negative reaction from both the players and the fans. So I think kind of going back on that is probably Survivor's attempt at saving face, and also maybe being creative. Who knows?
Yeah. Do we think even with Jake's exit, do we still need a split tribal?
Ooh, yeah, that might
I
make it so
can't
we
do
don't
math,
have a.
so I don't know, but
I can't do math either. I don't know how many episodes are in a season. That's a good point. I did not consider Mr. Jake there. So who knows? We'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah, well, we will see, but let's move on from Survivor then to Dancing with the Stars. So, Jenna, we talked to you right after the premiere of this season, but we are now at the halfway point. So, what are your thoughts? How are we feeling about Dancing with the Stars season 34?
I am loving this season. I think it's like one of the most talented I think it's probably the most talented group of contestants that we've ever seen. I think that some of the people who have already been eliminated probably would have made it a lot farther in kind of previous seasons. I've been kind of watching a few seasons back, kind of because I get kind of hyper fixated on things. So once Dancing with the Stars season
You're in
rolls
good
around, I
company.
like to rewatch old seasons of Dancing with the Stars. So I think that like some of the people who have been eliminated already would have made it farther on other seasons, but it's definitely been very entertaining. It's produced a lot of great dances. a very select few not so great dances, and we've seen kind of couples go home that we didn't necessarily expect. And I think that's been um, definitely kind of a twist in kind of the what we expected to happen. But overall, I've been loving the season. It's one of my favorite shows, so always love to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I've loved this season so far. I think that it's so competitive. It feels like just the Dancing with the Stars community has grown so much over the past few years that it feels like just I love when everybody's talking about a show and I can talk about it with my friends. And we had that with Love Island the last couple of years. We've had that even with Big Brother this past season. It felt like a lot of people were watching it and into it that maybe aren't normally. And now with Dancing with the Stars, I feel like this may be even more than either of those two. And I just have to say that this past week of Dancing with the Stars actually made TV history as the first show in a fall season for 30 over 30 years since ratings have been calculated by Nielsen to grow its audience every week for the first 6 weeks. That is the
Wow.
first show in TV history to do that in a fall season. Isn't that wild?
That's crazy. And I think it like definitely has to do with the social media buzz. And I think they have a really interesting group of contestants on the season. And I think like all credit to them, all credit to the pros. They're definitely putting in a lot in the troupe. They're putting in a lot of work to grow the audience. And I think the everyone watching the same show effect has definitely taken over kind of mainstream. We had it with Love Island, like you said. We had it with Some I Turn Pretty. Like we had it, and now have it with Dancing with the Stars. And it's literally so much fun. I think everyone loves to be a part of the conversation, and I think that everyone's finally kind of recognizing how fun of a show Dancing with the Stars is. The voting aspect makes a lot of people want to tune in and that they have a say. And it's like, oh, I love so and so. I can vote for them 10 times and make sure all my friends vote. And they're like, why are we voting? And it's like, come over to my apartment. We'll have a watch party. You can see why I made you vote for this person.
Yeah, I think that people just love, they yearn for like a communal show like that,
For
where
sure.
I feel like this Netflixization of so many shows for so long now has made it where you just put out a whole season all at once and, that way you can watch it whenever you want to. But the problem with that is that everybody's at a different place in the show and you can't talk about it. And there's no growing throughout the season of people finding it mid-season and everybody's talking about it, so I want to go watch it now. And then I want to be able to talk at work the next day with everybody or at school the next day or whatever it is. Like there's something about that that is so much fun that I think a lot of people have missed in the last 5-10 years since Netflix has really taken over. And yeah, I think that Dancing with the Stars is just a great show for that because it's live and interactive, similar to Love Island, and you can vote and vote for your favorites. And I just think that it's so much fun. I love that it has Dancing with the Stars has made this turn, the past few years where it went from being one of the oldest skewing shows on TV to one of the youngest skewing show on TV. That it's now having higher ratings than it has since 2017, which was such a
Crazy.
completely different landscape of TV, and that it can be the highest performing season since then is just it's really really wild. And I have been absolutely enjoying it. I think it's a great season for it to become so popular because it really is a very very fun season so far.
Agree.
Well, let's just kind of before we get into this past week and going into each couple, we've had a lot of fun theme nights so far this season. Have you had any favorites that we've seen in the first 6 weeks?
I always love dedication night. I always love Disney night. I think those are two staples, or like either dedication night or most memorable year. I really love those. I think the marks might have been a little bit missed on TikTok night and One Hit Wonder night, but
Mm.
I do always love how the premiere is usually the personal anthem of the star. But bringing the Wicked night in definitely kind of generated a huge buzz for it. I think, especially like in the middle of the two movies, especially like and especially generating buzz for the new movie coming out in less than a month now. Very, I think, well placed in the season, and I think Wicked is already a very popular franchise that obviously dominated the box offices last year and created a lot of cultural buzz. So I think making a Wicked night was very smart of them, and I personally loved it. I am a huge fan of the musical, a huge fan of the movie. I've seen it many times on Broadway or off or wherever it tours, things like that, and just love the music. So yeah, obviously, I was a huge fan of Wicked Night.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into each couple then that we have left here, our top 9 couples. We'll go in alphabetical order by the stars' names. So let's start with Alex and Val. What are your thoughts so far on, and we can kind of go, we can focus a little bit on last week's episode, but if we want to just kind of as a whole talk about each of these couples here and their journey over the first half of the season. So what have you thought of Alex and Val?
I loved Alex and Val. I thought I had pretty high expectations for them going in because I feel like from kind of TikToks that I had seen of them rehearsing, they were really showing like a lot of good movement and a lot of good musicality. I'll be honest, like going into the season, I was a little bit skeptical, but like once I saw that she could move, I was really excited about them. And she's like continued to impress me. I think that her scores have been really fair, and she's also been excited about them. And as she should be, she's working really hard and producing really excellent dances. I think her Maleficent dance and her dedication night dances were two standouts for me. I loved especially the Maleficent dance. I thought she absolutely nailed her dance this past week. She channeled Ariana's mannerisms really well, and it was really fun to see kind of that theatrical side of her. And I think I will say I think I've liked kind of the Disney night dance and the dedication night a bit more than the Wicked one, but I really just enjoy watching her and Val. What about you? What do you think of them?
Yeah, I think Alex is great. I feel like she was getting some criticism, especially in the early weeks, for kind of maybe feeling stiff or not connecting with the audience as well. But I never really got, at least the stiffness critique, I never really got that. I think from week one, I really have enjoyed all of her dances. And I do see where some people say, like, okay, we're not necessarily getting a ton of her personality necessarily coming through, but I feel like she does such a good job of that just on TikTok, and that maybe she doesn't even need to necessarily do that as much on the show itself because a lot of her fans are fans of hers because they connect with her personally already. So maybe she's not necessarily doing as good of a job of maybe converting new viewers or fans of Dancing with the Stars who weren't as familiar with her already, but I think that she has big enough fan base just with her fans coming into it that she doesn't even necessarily need those to make it pretty far in this competition. So I've really enjoyed them, and I think that they are not going to go anywhere anytime in the next few weeks at least.
No, I did like the personality that she brought to Glinda and What Is His Feeling
Yeah.
this week. I thought that that was like a fun change of pace of seeing like a different side of her personality, her more playful, theatrical
Hmm.
side.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Andy and Emma. So Andy and Emma, he's in the top 9. Uh, who would have thought it?
Who would have thunk?
Yeah. But I love Andy. I think that, I mean, talk about people who are connecting with the audience. Andy is doing such an incredible job of that. His personality shines through every dance. You can tell he is having the best time. And I think that the viewers just love it because he is not somebody who comes, he's like the quintessential Dancing with the Stars casting because he does not come into this being any type of professional dancer, and he is somebody who's not necessarily the most technical, or he's never going to necessarily have a perfect dance, but I don't think that he needs that. I think that he is doing such a great job of just improving week to week, and he's not just standing there. He is trying his absolute hardest, and I think he's doing a great job.
I think I might have made this kind of comparison the last time that I was on the podcast, but I really kind of see a similarity between him and Barry Williams from a few years ago
Mm,
when Barry was partnered with PETA. I think the audience just
mhm.
like absolutely fell in love with Barry and voted him all the way to Final Seven. And
Dang, I
I
forgot he
did,
went that far.
yeah, he made it out, or he got voted out right before Harry Jowsey did on that season.
Oh
So
god. God, the fact that Harry made it to Final 6.
six was crazy.
Oh
Um,
god.
but I think that, I mean, I do think that Barry might have been a little bit more talented than Andy is, but I think I've seen Andy improving every single week. And I think his, like, he obviously has his fans, and it's really cool to see someone who doesn't have like a large social media presence or a large like fan base beforehand. I like can count on one hand the number of people who I know that knew who Andy Richter was before starting Dancing with the Stars, and now
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are voting for him every week. And I do enjoy that there's someone like this on this season. I think it's made for some sad eliminations for some other couples that I personally enjoy, but I really enjoy Andy a lot too, and I think he's obviously having a lot of fun with Emma. I do think that he can only last so long though, so we'll see when he ends up going home, if it's soon, if it's in a couple of weeks, like we'll have to see. But I don't think he's going to make it to the finale or anything like that, unless the fans really surprise us. But it'll just be interesting to see. I think this week for Wicked Night was definitely his best dance. He was really kind of digging into the character. Emma gave him a lot of content that he was working with, and he was on time. It's a miracle, as Bruno would say, that he was on time the whole time, but it was enjoyable.
Mhm. So here's my question about Andy. Do we think that he should be judged on the same scale as all of the other couples? Because clearly, Dancing with the Stars wants to cast a diverse group of people in terms of dance experience, age, background, all of that. But when you do that, when you cast such a wide net of people, do we think that he needs to be judged on a bit of a different scale than somebody who came into this show with a lot of dance experience, or even just some dance experience, or some capabilities just of being a younger person? And what does a 10 look like for Andy? Does it look the same as it does for someone like Whitney, or does it look like what, a 10 would be given his capabilities?
To be totally frank, I don't see Andy getting a 10. I think that it's kind of a mix. I don't think he has the ability to get those higher scores, unfortunately. But I do think they are judging him on kind of a different scale than some of the other dancers. Because, I mean, if we put it realistically, this last week he got three sevens and a six. Let's say Jen and Dylan, for example, both got all eights. That's only 1 point above Andy, and their dances looked very different. So I do think that they're all getting judged on different scales. They I think that seven might be kind of nearing the top of Andy's scale. I
Hmm.
think that, but I do think that they're judging him like as Andy. I think they're not really comparing him to a Whitney, because if that were the case, then Whitney would be getting a 10 and Andy would be getting like a 4. I think it's like I think they are judging him on his own scale, kind of
Hmm.
in retrospect, but I think they kind of have to be realistic, and they've seen that Andy has improved significantly from last week to this week and from like the first week, so that's why his scores have been improving, but they're also kind of improving on his own scale, if that makes sense. I think his scores like
Yeah.
are realistic for him.
I totally get what you're saying. I guess that I just have a bit of a problem with the fact that he would be capped out at a 7 or something like that. Because, like, he should, if they are going to cast someone like Andy on this show, he needs to be able to get a 10. Like, he needs to have just as good of a chance to get a 10 or a 1 as anyone else does. And I just feel like I don't know what that looks like for him. I don't know what a 10 looks like for him. But I think that as judges, they need to figure that out. And,
Mhm.
and if he does that, then he should be able to get a 10. And, I get that, like, look, he's not going to be as talented of a dancer as Whitney or as Elaine or even Elaine, like, as any of the other ones that are left. But
Mhm.
I think that he needs to have that opportunity to do that, or why cast him at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and who knows, he might pull out like the sharpest posado play that we've ever seen for Halloween week.
Who
Who
knows?
knows? That would be great. But I also like, I kind of understand like where they're coming from in terms of like not kind of letting him get a 10, because I feel like some people might get pretty upset if they gave like Andy a 10 and then
I
like
think they would, yeah.
Robert or Dylan like nines, when Robert's like pulling out like crazy routines and Andy's like moving a little bit sharper than he was the week before, if that makes sense. Like,
Hmm.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think like in the grand scheme of things they do have to kind of make it realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm in the minority of this. Like, I don't think that this is something that a lot of people online are feeling. But I just, yeah, I always hate that. Like, I hate when the scores are like, I think I said this in the first week when we recapped this. I was like, I don't like the fact that they purposely make the scores lower in week 1 for the same dance that if they were to dance that in week 7 would have gotten a 10, but because it's week 1 they're getting a 6 or a 7. Like, I don't like when they kind of like mess with the scores like that, and I think that everybody deserves the opportunity to get, whatever on their scale that is based on their dance experience, their capabilities, whatever. I think that the judges from week 1, we need to figure out what a 1 and a 2 look like and what a 9 and a 10 look like, and whatever week it is, they need that to be the same score that it would be week to week, and that way we actually legitimately can tell how they have improved as the season has gone on.
I understand what you're saying for sure. I think from my perspective, I think they need those first couple of weeks in order to see what that scale might look like for different
That's fair.
couples. Yeah, so I think like kind of going in, they do have like a little bit of lower scores so that they can one evaluate the dancer, give them a little bit more room to grow, and then also create that scale. Because I think if let's say Whitney were to perform Andy's dance, I think she would get maybe like a 5 or a 4, like based on her scale. Like, I think if
Mhm.
she, but because Andy performed that dance at his level, he was given like a 7. Or so I do think that judges create score those scales for each individual celebrity, and it looks different, but I think they need those lower scores like the first couple of weeks in order for the judges to kind of see their capabilities and create those skills.
That is very fair. All right. Well, let's move on then to Danielle and Pasha. So, Jenna, what have your thoughts on Danielle been this season so far?
So I love Danielle. I have never seen Boy Meets World. I wasn't even super familiar with Danielle before the show. I have strictly just been watching her on the show, on her social media, and on her podcast, and I've become such a big fan of her. She puts out these hilarious memes every single day, it seems like, on her Instagram story, that are just so funny. And her podcast is really great. I really love hearing her conversations with different pros, different old pros, different people in the dance world, and really like learning, getting their advice on what she can be doing to improve in the competition. It seems like she's really investing a lot into this. Like, we saw that she teared her hamstring during like week 2 or 3, and she's had to work on that pretty hard. She unfortunately kind of got into this period where she did 3 pretty like kind of upbeat, fast, happy, smiley dances in a row, and she got a critique that all of her dances were starting to kind of look the same. Danielle understood that critique, so did I, and I was super excited that she was given a more serious dance this past week for the Argentine tango that they did to No Good Deed. I loved getting to just see that more serious side of her, and then she has a Viennese waltz next week to Die with a Smile. By Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars that I am just so excited
It's
for.
going
I
to be
really
really good.
love that dance and or that song and excited to see them. But I'm definitely on Danielle's team. She's one of my clients. I'm voting for her every week.
Yeah, I'm with you in the fact that I was not super familiar with Danielle before the season, but I have really been impressed by her 100%. And she has, I think is again kind of one of those quintessential Dancing with the Stars castings, like somebody who is not, doesn't have an extreme dance background, but
Hmm.
is just trying really really hard every week. And I kind of hated that critique from Carrie Ann that they all sounded so familiar, or they all looked so familiar, because that's not her fault of what dances she's getting. Like, she doesn't get to pick
Exactly.
that. And so it's like,
Hmm.
okay, you've got three upbeat dances in a row. Yeah, they're probably going to look kind of similar because they're kind of similar dances. So I didn't love that critique, but I think that, yeah, she came back and thankfully had a very different dance, and she was able to kind of get that critique out of the way from her. So
Have
yeah,
a
I think that
breakthrough
she's
moment, if you will.
yes, definitely. And I will say I'm a little bit concerned that I think she could be in danger in the next 2 or 3 weeks here, just because I don't know in terms of like her fan, how much of an audience she has versus maybe some of these other people that are maybe getting just as high, if not higher, on scores on average. So I'm a little bit afraid that she might not make it too much longer, but I'm hopeful that hopefully she won't. She'll have a couple more weeks left in her at least.
I kind of disagree with that. I've seen a lot of people listing Danielle in their finales. I've seen a
Mm,
lot of like of the pros who I've heard talking about the couples, like, and a lot of different people who I've seen listing Danielle as making their finales. And I have a few other couples that I think might be in more danger than her, but
okay.
who knows? We'll have to see.
Yes, we will.
It's also
Well,
very
let's.
hard because you can't know who's like actually kind of in the bottom, who's really in
I
danger, because
know.
they
Yeah.
only reveal who's going home. They don't reveal
Hmm.
the order of anyone else.
I feel like the only way to judge it is by looking at YouTube, like how many views each of the dances are getting. And I always feel like I see Danielle as like not one of the higher ones, but I could be wrong about that. I don't have a distinct memory of kind of where she fell in that, but I feel like Robert's always like twice as many as anyone else. Is kind of the one really noticeable thing that you can always count on every week, is that Robert's going to have twice as many views on YouTube as any the next highest couple. So other than that, everyone else is like not too far off from each other, of the ones that are left at least. So well, let's move on to Dylan Efron, otherwise known as Zach Efron's brother, as Mike Bloom might call him. But what I feel like Dylan has been a great surprise this season, and I don't even know if I would say a surprise. Like, I feel like I had like pretty high hopes for him, but I always felt like there was this chance that he could kind of fall in like the grocery store Joe, Harry Jowsey category of somebody who's just kind of like looks really pretty while they're dancing, but isn't very talented. But he's been really, really great, and somebody who I think has been vastly improving week to week. And I think these last couple weeks he has been a huge standout. And I look. I did not necessarily think that he was going to make the finale going into this, but now wouldn't be shocked.
I think that's funny that you name Harry Jowsey and Grocery Store Joe because they both got sixth place. So we'll see if
Oh my god, Grocery Store Joe also got sixth place.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I blocked that whole season out though from
So
my
we'll
memory,
see
to be
if
fair.
Dylan suffers the same fate. But I agree. I think that Dylan's kind of dancing ability, especially his hip action, was definitely a surprise. I think I think Dylan's a really good example of someone who is getting judged on his own scale. It might just be a bias of mine, but Dylan got all nines and Robert didn't get all nines for his dedication dance. And I think that, like, it might just be my bias. I enjoyed watching Robert's dance more than Dylan's, and it was just like kind of just not scored in the same way. So I do think that they were have been scoring Dylan on Dylan's scale. I think that his eights that he got this week were justified. I really like Dylan. I do still think like it's just so interesting watching him with Daniela because Daniela is such a powerhouse, such a like a fiery woman, and I still think he does kind of get kind of dominated by her in the dances, and I think that's kind of just bound to happen. But I think that we've seen with like some of Danielle's other partners that she like they've been able to kind of like I mean hold their own, I guess. And Dylan's certainly holding his own, but like I do still think that like Daniela might be kind of like the leader. But
Hmm.
it's been nice to see him like this week and last week and the week before, like kind of really grow into his own. He's working
Yeah.
really hard and like it's really appreciated to see like the work that he is putting in. And I mean, granted, this week he did have the rumba, which are like a notoriously hard dance for men. And I was also kind of still a little bit confused by the song choice that they got. But I think that they did well, like all things considered. And I am happy to see that he's doing well. He's kind of on my list of people who I think could be in danger, kind of in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have to see.
Yeah, well,
I
he
don't
was
really
one
know.
of the bottom 3 this last week, so
Yeah.
we don't know if that means anything at all, but he was still up there at the end, so it is possible, I guess, that that could mean something and maybe he is in danger, but we shall see about that. But let's move on to Elaine Hendricks. What have you thought about Elaine this season so far?
I love Elaine. I'm a diehard Parent Trap fan, so very excited to see Elaine in there, and I think she's exceeding every expectation that I had. She's like danced really well, and especially learning that she has like titanium in her foot. She has like an injury. She kind of dances a little bit differently than others. It's really interesting to see like how she's been able to overcome that. I thought that her dance last week was really great. I thought that her dance this week was her best one yet, really a breakthrough. I agree with the judges and her nines. Like, I understand the nine over the 10. I think a lot of people are arguing for a 10 for Elaine, but I think the part where Elaine was getting on the lift kind of took us out of the like Elaine part of the
Mhm.
dance. They kind of I mean Alan did great in that part, but it kind of took us out for a split second. But I still think it was beautiful and wonderful and amazing and her best dance yet. So proud of her. So excited that she got that song. Really a big fan of her and definitely rooting hard for her.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the 9 was warranted because she was not there for a hot minute in that dance. But I
Hmm.
do think that the moment of that and how cool it was and how
So
viral it went
good.
was worth it. Like lowering the score potentially just a slight bit, even if, not doing that may have gotten her the 10, who knows? But I think
Hmm.
that it was worth it because that moment was so
So
talked about
good.
and viral that it probably added to her votes and made up for whatever she might have lost in the scores.
Exactly. And I think that was Alan's best dance too, that he's choreographed
Mm,
from the dances that I've seen of him. Like he did some really nice ones with Alona last year and with Hannah Brown, some of his other partners in the
yeah.
past. But I do think that this contemporary with Elaine was a standout piece from him for sure. I'm really proud of him and his choreography was really just really great. And the rest of the dance too, even before the big final moment was really excellent. So I'm really proud of Elaine.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then to Jen and Jan. Now, I think that Jen, so obviously I know Jen from Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and I was very excited to see her on here, but I didn't know how she was going to do. I've been impressed by her. I think. she's certainly been better than I expected her to be, and I think that, Jan, I feel like especially in the last couple of weeks have maybe been getting some criticism for his choreography. I have liked his choreography this season. I do think that I feel like anyone that has a new pro, I think, is at a bit of a disadvantage just because the pros at this point in the show have their own audiences that are sometimes even bigger than the stars audiences that they are paired with. And having a new pro, obviously he comes from the Taylor Swift world, so I mean, Swifties are gonna Swifty, and I, could be 50 times as big as any of the pros on this show. But just in terms of, that he is not as familiar to this audience that is going to be the ones watching and voting, that puts Jen at a bit of a disadvantage. But just the fact that they've made it this far with a brand new pro is pretty rare. So I mean, we saw Ezra be the first one out last season, and Riley made it pretty far with, but she was in the Arnold family, familiar, not completely new to the show. But yeah, I think they've done great. I do worry every week for the past week or two. I've been a little bit worried that it's going to be them. So I don't see her necessarily making finale, but proud of her. I think she's done really well.
I'm in the same boat with you. I think that her time is kind of coming in the next couple of weeks. But I would kind of push back on. I mean, I understand where you're coming from in terms of Jan might not have like the formal ballroom training that some of the other pros do, but Riley and Ezra both do. And I think that they both really brought in the new audiences. Like, I think a lot big reason for the Dancing with the Stars revival has to do with Riley and Ezra specifically
100%.
bringing in. So I think like I mean, I don't necessarily think they're at like a disadvantage if they have one of those new people as a pro, especially because a lot of the audience is so new to Dancing with the Stars. They don't really know the history of them or anything like that, or know that they weren't on the show before or anything like that. So like because they're coming in at the same time as Jan or Riley or Ezra, like I don't think that is a huge disadvantage in terms of people not voting for them because they are a new pro. But I think with we don't know like Jan's extensive formal ballroom training that he might have had or not had in the past. But I agree with you. I do like his choreography. I have seen him kind of getting a beat down online a little bit because he might not have like be executing it in the same way that some of the other pros might. I have a little bit more to say about the Riley of it all whenever we get to her, but I do really like Jan a lot. I think he's bringing a fun energy to the show. I loved him on the Eras tour. Obviously, big fan of just him as a human. I think like his audio of his TikTok lives are going viral, and that's been really fun. And some of the other pros are kind of recreating or lip syncing to his live audios, and those have been very fun. I think he brings a fun energy to it, and I think he's figuring out the best way to teach ballroom to his partner during this season. And I think that Jen is doing a great job with his choreography. And I know, like, I do feel bad that she's like not thinking she's a great dancer or she's like wanting harder choreography. I think that like she might not be like I agree with Derek's comments that like it might not be like harder choreography that she's needs. She just like needs to like master the choreography that she needs is giving. But I understand where Jen is coming from with that comment. I've always kind of compared her a little bit to Jen Tran. I see kind of them kind of in a
Mm,
similar caliber of ability or like kind of level of dancer. So we'll have to see, but I've definitely enjoyed her on this season. I think it's really brave of her to come out like right after she had a baby, and like I think she's just doing really well, especially considering that. And it's been really enjoyable to watch her dance.
yeah. Have you seen PETA and Max talking on their, I guess it's their podcast? They were talking about Jan particularly, and also I think Ezra too,
And
about
Riley too.
yeah. What do you think about what they've said about it?
Well, I think like I said, I don't know Jan's extensive training history and like
Yeah.
whether or not he's been formally trained in ballroom. But I think I've seen more of what he said about Riley than Jan, but I do think he's kind of digging into Jan a bit too much. I also watched Kristen Burt's
Mm.
uh, kind of cut or conversation on them, and she doesn't think that any of them are going anywhere anytime soon. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that like they can use this like kind of time in between to kind of sharpen up on um, their kind of their abilities and their
Mhm.
teachings and stuff like that. And I think like I mean I'll just get into it now with Ezra and Riley. I think that um, Ezra had a lot of
And we
great
have Jordan and
training.
Ezra up next anyways,
Oh,
so good
okay.
timing.
Never mind.
Yeah. No, but yeah, like I agree. I think that PETA and Max are seem to be so focused on like the technicality of it all, and I just don't think the viewers at home care about that. Like they don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know the technicality of it all. So like, yeah, they might. Jan's choreography might not be exactly technically perfect of the dance that it is, well, I don't know that. Like, I just want to be entertained. So I think, look, like, as long as he can give me choreography that's entertaining, I'm good with it.
I just listened to Bruno saying that was a proper foxtrot and or
Yeah.
something like that. Like and I do like when it's like kind of consistently the dance throughout the dance. Like I think um yeah, like on all the different dances that are like it's that dance, the whole dance. Those are some of
Hmm.
my favorites.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're about to get into Ezra. We do have Jordan and Ezra up next. So, what are your thoughts on them so far?
I mean, speaking of them, I loved the fact that Jordan and Ezra's rumba was a pure rumba. I really like
Hmm.
saw a lot of it was a beautiful choreography. It was like Ezra did a really great job with it, and with last week, I really enjoyed her dance with her dad. I think like her growth from week one has been like really amazing, and especially she had to go first during week one, so I think like that
Yeah.
could have been very kind of daunting. And also like the judges were evaluating her skill like I was saying, and um they kind of might have seen a few things in that first dance that they weren't fans of. They gave critiques, and Ezra and Jordan were able to come back from that. But like I was beginning to talk about a little bit earlier, Ezra did have that time on the troop during season 30. And from what I've learned about the troops really choreographing their own bumpers and also assisting other pros with their choreography for their dances, and getting to be a part of a lot of different dances. So I really think being on the troupe is a really great opportunity to learn different dances. So like pros like Britt and Jenna, and even Lindsay and I think Whitney too, like they were all on the troop for at least a little bit. So like they have all talked about how the time that they've spent on the troop was really monumental and like teaching them how to be a good teacher and teaching them like what looks good for the camera. And I think Ezra specifically does a really great job of like knowing what looks good on camera. Like every time I see him, he's just like such an amazing dancer, and he's always serving face to the camera and just putting on such a great show. And I think he's really been able to teach Jordan really well, kind of what looks good on camera, what looks good to the judges, while teaching her the technical styles. Like, I think I just loved this dance this week, and I think her tens were deserved. I hated their outfits, both of their outfits. Jordan looked like a snake, but and Ezra looked like a beach Ken. But anyways, I thought that it was such a breakthrough dance for her, and I'm like really proud of her and her journey so far.
Yeah, Jordan's been great. I was a little worried about her, like you said, after week one, and her
Week
scores were
one.
kind of low. And I was like, ooh, maybe she's not going to be quite as good as we all expected her to be. But then she came right back in week two and bounced back. And so, yeah, she's been great. And Ezra, I'm really happy that Ezra finally got his first tens this past week.
So
When I say
fun.
finally, it's his second season. But he seems so 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 happy about that and just proud, and I really love to see that. And so yeah, I fully expect them to make finale night. I would say,
Make it, or
right?
at least make it far.
Yeah, at least like maybe okay, maybe like the week before finale night, but I expect them to be here basically the whole season.
I also am
Uh,
like really happy for Ezra for getting like a partner that he's able to explore choreography with.
mm,
And like I think like you were saying earlier, like he got eliminated first week during his first season. I think that's like less to do with him and more to do with who he was partnered with, and her not necessarily having the best like biggest fan base, like best response to her being on the show. So I think that had more to do with his partner and less to do with him.
yes, I fully agree with that. But let's move on then to Robert and Whitney. Now, Robert, I think a lot of people after week one, when we were recapping it, said, you know, cue the Zach Rance meme, as Brandon Donlin posted, like just end the season already. What are your thoughts now that we're halfway through? Has that changed?
I think that has no, no. I can't. I will never say a bad word about Robert. He is like has always been my absolute favorite. He shines on the screen. I have a huge crush on him. I absolutely adore this man. Like you'll never make me hate him. I'll be voting for him every week until my thumbs fall off. But I
After
do
the
think
season's over, just continuing every Tuesday night.
every Tuesday. No, I do think like the first week I talked about on the pod how fortunate he was to get that jive. And I think and he was the only celeb that got a jive that week. So his dance automatically stood out. He was the very last dance of the night. Like the judges had already seen kind of every other dance and his really popped. And I think in a great way he was tied at the top of the leaderboard. And then I think because the judges like again going back to the scales, we like they set up a scale for Robert, and I think he like hasn't necessarily been like popping bang 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 every single week like we might have expected him to, but I think he's consistently high performing. He's consistently delivering good dances, good performances. I think the his like weeks 2 and 3 dances like might not have been like the most memorable, but definitely his first week, his dedication night dance, I still think that that deserved all nines for that dance. Maybe even a 10. I don't even know. I loved the dance, but this week especially, I think it was his best dance. I think it deserved at least 110. It was my favorite dance of the night. But Winnie's choreography is so smart, and like I think the troupe and the eliminated pros did a really great job. But like Robert was the main star of it. He like kind of outshined each of them, and that's not a diss of any of the other people in the dance, but more so a compliment to Robert. His choreography was, or his performance of Whitney's choreography was amazing. His little rubber band trick that he did was just incredible. I thought it was really sweet that Jonathan Bailey sent him flowers. Like the wink, the book choreography, like I was swooning the whole entire time. I loved this dance. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, Robert's incredible. There was like a period of time, maybe like a couple weeks ago, where he started to remind me a lot of Steven Nedorozic, where like week
Mm,
one, it was just like, oh my God, like he's the clear front runner to win this whole thing. And then like week two, week three, it was like, oh, maybe he's like not technically perfect as much as we all
mhm.
thought he was, just because we were kind of so distracted by all the tricks and flips and just the performance of it all. But I do think that as the weeks have gone on, I think that he's better than Steven is just as a dancer. And I think that he also has more of a fan base just judging based on like the YouTube views as we talked about. And
I
so
mean, half of his army.
yeah, true. The other half is me. But
Great.
I think that he is still my favorite to win for sure. I do think though that our next one that we will be talking about, Whitney, I think is going to give him a run for his money though. I am not 100% as convinced I think as I was week one that Robert was going to win because let's just get into Whitney Levitt here because she and Mark have been really, really doing incredible as well.
Yeah, I have loved all of Whitney's dances. I think especially those first couple of weeks, I loved her Hamilton dance. I thought her like TikTok dance was really good. Obviously, this dance she got 3 10s and a 9. I probably personally would have given it a 9, but I think I saw like a few parts where she might have been like a little bit not perfect. I'm not even really sure.
Mm.
But I think that her mannerisms are so funny, and she's like really putting her all into every single thing, and especially um, like I don't know, every single week she's improving. I can see her improving. Her quick step was just really great this week, and but we have seen her stumble a little bit. Last week she was like behind time a little bit or ahead of time. She something wasn't right, but we've seen her stumble and get stronger. I definitely think that she'll have great dances from here on out. And Mark's a great choreographer, so that's definitely something to consider. But I'm really excited to see the rest of her journey. I don't know like how the fan base is necessarily responding to her. I've seen some calls for her to get eliminated, so I'm not sure exactly like if she's getting like as many votes as maybe like a Robert or a Jordan or some other people who might be in that finale. We'll have to see when the time comes, but I definitely think she's making it there. Like, especially considering her high judges scores and like her fun content that she's posting and her husband's commitment to the bit. Like, he turned green this week. Very fun.
Oh
We were asking who's going to turn green all along. It was Whitney's husband.
Who would have thought? But yeah, no, I think this is where I think like if Whitney doesn't have quite the fan base, Mark does. And that's where I
Hmm.
think like having someone like Mark who is such a star in and of itself is a huge boost to whoever his partner is. And thankfully it is
For
Whitney who
sure.
is such an incredible dancer. But you know, I think that if Whitney was partnered with Jan, I would be a little bit worried about her fan base that might not be big enough. Like, and that's where what I was kind of trying to say before, that like it's not necessarily that that applies to every pro that's not new, but
Gotcha.
I do think that it applies to Mark. It applied to when Derek was a pro on the show. Like, it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, whoever gets Derek or Mark is probably going to make it pretty far because they just have the fan base to get them through at least the first half of the season. You know,
Yeah,
no
and
matter
like
who their partner.
along with that, they have the choreography too to
Yeah,
match.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But let's then just kind of very briefly talk about our dearly departed Scott and Riley, who got the boot this week. What were your thoughts on them being the ones to leave?
I agreed with the scores. I have seen some interviews with Scott saying that he kind of blinked out and forgot a few moves, and that got him off timing. But I do think he was able to bounce back because the second half of his dance was really great, but the first half was like really kind of all over the place, pretty messy. But I'm really sad to see him go. I'm a big fan of him personally, and I'm also a fan of Riley as well. And they had a really sweet friendship, and maybe their like kind of dance connection wasn't as like strong as some of the others, but I personally do think that she's a really great pro, and I think like especially her choreography last year was Steven was really great. I think her jazz choreography and her salsa choreography with Scott this year have been really great. Like her dedication night choreography, I think that she's been doing a great job with Scott, and she wasn't on troop like Ezra was, and she didn't have the opportunity to kind of like get more choreography training specifically for Dancing with the Stars before she became a pro. But I think she's like done a great job at being a pro, and I think she makes her partners look good, despite what some people say. That's just kind of my take on it. But overall, I'm sad to see them go because I liked their partnership.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something, and I think that Riley did a great job this season. I agree with you, and I think Scott was great. I do think that like I think their time to go in the next week or two if it wasn't going to be this week. Like, I don't see them having made it past the next couple weeks. So I know some people were like, how did they go before Andy or something like that? But like, I wasn't super, I was upset, but I wasn't super like, oh, this is so unfair, because I really didn't think that they necessarily were like going to make it much further than this regardless. But
Yeah.
I hope that Riley's okay, just because like, she's not doing the tour this season. Like, I know that, like, she was saying that with, her, is it her diabetes, that it
Yeah,
was
her
tough last
type.
year. So I
Yeah.
hope that everything's okay with her. But yeah, I think that she's gonna have a long future on this show. So I'm, not worried that like, oh, this is the last we're gonna see of her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's not doing the tour because like she's gone she was saying it was hard to manage with her diabetes, and also she broke her or fractured her ankle during the last tour at one of the
Hmm.
last stops, and she might just be kind of worried about injury again, especially because
Yeah.
she's so kind of young in her career and she just wants to like kind of strengthen her, maybe even like strengthen her ankles, get that back up to date. Like maybe that's not fully healed, and also like she just wants to kind of take at least one off to just get her health back in check and like have that period of time to fully heal in between seasons.
Yeah. And that is the
Yeah,
priority. We want her to
exactly.
be on the show for a long time, and not pushing it is probably the smart move to make that happen.
Exactly.
But I think, unless you have anything else, Jenna, I think that we are, closing the book on this, episode of Dancing with the Stars. Excited for next week, Halloween night with Cheryl
Very
Burke as our guest
excited.
judge, which is a little bonkers, and
Crazy.
very, very excited to see Cheryl back in the ballroom. I did not necessarily think we would see that. Maybe on the 20-year anniversary episode, I thought we might see her, but certainly not for a whole guest judge before that. So, excited to
My
see her there.
my jaw
But
was on the floor.
yeah, me too. Me too. But Jenna, thank you so much for joining us this week. And, we will be back next week. And, be sure to follow us on social media at Let's Chat Reality, and, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, thank you so much for joining us. And we will chat with y'all later. Bye, everyone.